Bone Luke Nation, we are coming at you today. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, May 2021. We have a very special episode for you where we are going to talk about a serious issue. You may see it around social media. It's veteran suicide, uh, associated with the number 22, because on average, 22 veterans take their own lives every single day in this country. It's a big issue. Suicide is a real thing for veterans suffering from PTSD or whatever they're dealing with in life. So we really wanted to get this episode out. We have a very special guest with us, former Army Ranger, Special Forces, Rick Murillo. He has an organization, Through Tragedy Comes Light. But about 6 years ago, Rick started this awareness run. And this year, May 22nd, is going to be the 6th annual Man 22 Suicide Awareness run outside of Fayetteville, actually in Rayford, North Carolina. And we have Rick with us tonight. He's going to talk to us about his story. We're going to get into some questions, and we're going to go deep on what this means, and even how people can help, maybe some signs that people can look for, and not just in veterans, in suicide prevention in general. Ranger Rick, welcome to the Bone Luke Show.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is great. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us and share your story. So why don't we just kick it off there? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, Rick Murillo. I grew up in New Jersey. I was actually born in Belize and raised in New Jersey with my mom, my stepdad, my four sisters. Um, Decided to join them. Well, actually, my mom decided to join the military for me. So she went and actually did all the paperwork.
Wow.
So I was actually EMT before I left to the military. Joined the military, didn't know what I was getting into. I don't have that fancy story where it's like I joined and I was like, ooh, I want to be this, I want to be that. All I knew is I was going to be cleaning cannons, which was totally the opposite description of what I signed up for.
Wow.
Thank you to all those recruiters who keep it real.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, um, but yeah, and then I just, volunteered my way through it. Airborne guy came in with his fancy beret, so they signed me up. Army Ranger came in with the real Ranger black beret, signed me up, and I ended up in Ranger Battalion. Did about four years there. Went to Korea. Decided, the regular Army wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Saw this recruiter poster to be a Green Beret. You get a free plane ticket home. So I was like, cool, I'll do that. Let's go. Yeah. And that's what I did. I sat in on the briefing in SFAS, and I was like, wow, this sounds like some cool stuff. And I always tell that story, and it's usually like 4 or 5 years into being SF. I tell the story, and I'm like, here I am 4 or 5 years later. And that's pretty much the gist of my military career.
Yeah, and so for everyone listening, SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection, so it's no easy thing. And I would say, Rick, in my time in the Army, I always felt like there's armies inside the Army, right? Yeah. Because they're just not all units are not created equal. But then that was one of the fascinating parts about the Army, is there's so much opportunity to do things like you did, if that was something that you wanted to do. So that's fantastic. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for yours. And thank you for your support.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
So let's just dive right into it. Suicide prevention. You have a story. I want you to tell people your story, because it almost hit you as you were dealing with things just before separating from the Army. What was going on then?
So in the Army, we being a Ranger was one of those things where you don't talk about your feelings, you don't talk about what you have going on. Even pre-deployment, you had that phase between Desert Storm and an actual Operation Enduring Freedom. And you started having guys coming back, and going through that psychological things of what they've seen. But in special operations at the time, nobody really could talk about it, because it's kind of like the fire department or the police department. If you mention it, you get pulled off the line. And, and then of course you get called all type of names like you're in high school again. So nobody really wanted to address the issue. Back then the stigma was real, especially in special operations. If you cried about your feelings, you were, you're this, you're that, so, and then you were off the team. And so I got shot in 2008. You know, was the best 3 months of my life. I always say it's the best 3 months of my life. You know, getting shot all the way to coming home, all the way to going back. You know, a month and a half later, it was great. You know, I didn't see any effects of it
Mm-hmm.
till I came back, which I still didn't recognize the effects. I just thought I was living life normally, partying, you know, having a great time, women, you know, alcohol, and just enjoying life. You know, I guess it was kind of a born again, you know, where
Yeah.
you get shot and you always wonder why did you survive when someone else didn't survive, you know.
Yeah.
And but I continued on, lived a little party rock star life. Eventually it all caught up with me, you know. A couple alcohol related incident, actually 2 DUIs back to back. And that's what the Army said, hey, we don't want you no more. You're just not even your liability now, you know.
Wow.
But rather than, you know, do the treatment or any assessment, they send you to, you know, alcohol substance abuse prevention
Mm-hmm.
counseling, kind of to check that block, just so you can get out, and then that's it. Then they kind
Yeah.
of forget about you. You know, in reality, they built you. An SF
Oh,
guy, a
sure.
Ranger guy, you're talking about, you know, millions of dollars worth in training. I
Mm-hmm.
think I saw a number 2.1 the other day. I could be wrong. I
Wow.
know it was over $1 million in training,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for a Ranger and a special forces guy.
Right.
And you think if you invested 2.1 million or $1 million into something, you wouldn't want to just watch it go away. You know, there's got to be some way you can recover it.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, the Army did not care, and that's what they were doing. Just like, okay, cool, thank you, bye.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, all I knew was Ranger SF, like I said before, and I continued down that rabbit hole and just continued on. With, you know, I met some good people out, you know, and then I met some bad people that just they felt the same way about the Army,
Hmm.
and just found myself in more trouble than ever, you know.
Wow.
And this when I had a good friend, Barry Barker. You know, we hung out for like at least a year straight. We hung out minus one day, but we would go out drinking, have a good time. We'd do things like bartending,
Mm-hmm.
which we both didn't know anything about bartending. All I knew was a Bud Light and a Jack and Coke at the time. So
Yeah.
when he asked me for a 7 and 7 or him, we look at each other and we go, "What is a 7 and 7?" And we're like, "I don't know." I was like, "Let's just put 7 different things in it to call it a day."
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it was Seagram 7 and 7 Up.
I think I'd rather have the 7 different things in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds
But
better.
yeah, he left and he decided to move back to Seattle, be close to his family, and do commercial diving. And so he went into the commercial diving industry.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, wow, good luck to you. You know, and he stayed out there, you know, did his thing. And eventually his demons caught back up with him. And, you know, I was too busy, you know,
Yeah.
trying to get a hold of my life or just let my life spin out of control, that I wasn't focused, wasn't asking him how he was doing, wasn't checking on him. And, you know, and to me, he was one of my best friends. And if you're not there for your best friends, then you're not really their best friend. And he eventually killed himself.
Mm.
And it just crushed me because I couldn't even go to the funeral or anything at that point. You know, so I kind of made a little decision to, hey, let me do something. Let me
Mhm.
make something better of myself. Hopefully I get myself out of trouble and I can do something, you know, and that's what I did. I created the run
Uh-huh.
the next year, May 1st, and his birthday's May 5th, mine is May 3rd. So I said, hey, let's do something for Barry leading up to his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've always loved to run in kit. So we decided to strap on our kit, run at the time, 22 push-ups was going on.
Mm-hmm.
22 push-ups, you know, for guys like us is not much. So I said, hey, let's put on our kit. Let's put Barry's name tape on our chest and run with him, showing we carry our brothers and sisters with us. Come back, and then we could do our 22 push-ups. And that's what we did.
Nice.
That's what we did. And 55 people showed up that year. Second year, 80 people showed up. Third year, 300. Fourth year, 450. Last year, we had up to probably 1,000 people out there.
Wow. That's
amazing.
fantastic. And then this year is the 6th annual Man
Yes.
22 run.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
So Rick, to just take it back just a little, so I hate to touch base on this, but I think it'll be really good for the listeners. When you found out about Barry, you know, and I take you back to what might be very well be like one of the worst days of your life, was the transition to, you know, really becoming proactive about this. Was this instantaneous, or did you have some, you know, self rediscovery you had to do as well in order to get there?
it was definitely not instantaneous, because at that point, when we lose someone, all we did was just go out and drink. We
Sure.
drink
Mhm.
ourselves probably to sleep. I probably drank myself to sleep like 2-3 days in a row. Wake up,
Sure.
do it again, pass out, wake up, do it again. And good thing I had some friends coming over, and trying to take care of me, but they would also find themselves drinking, because we'd sit there and just reminisce about Barry, reminisce about the moments we had together. And that was it. And that, at the time, alcohol was that outlet that everybody could relate to,
Of
Yeah.
course.
So it was a progress, and it was more of fixing myself and continue to move on. I probably had a good year and a half of legal issues to get out of before I could finally like say, okay, cool, now I'm done with this part of my life. Let's continue to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Wow. Quick question, Rick. Do you know, does the number 22, does that apply to only veterans, like post active duty, or does that also include the suicides that happen on active duty? Do you have any idea?
22, 6 years ago,
Mhm.
let's say 2015, when
Yeah.
22 first started popping up,
Right.
22. Um, it really, the numbers really reflect on, actually the majority of it was actually your Vietnam vets.
Oh, wow.
And then your
Hmm.
active duties were, or your active duties were on there, also your veterans also. But the real numbers, the percentage of those numbers actually came from your Vietnam vets.
Interesting.
They're at that age, they're passing away. One friend would pass away, and probably another friend, he's alone. That was his best friend, so he has nothing, so he killed himself. So that's actually probably 2015, maybe 16, 17. The majority were those Vietnam vets. So that's not what that's what a lot of people didn't understand when you look at some statistic numbers that way. And then it started kicking in with your active duties, and I want to say right now the majority is still is your veterans and active duty people.
Yeah.
And then you have the Vietnam guys who,
Sure.
a lesser percentage now, but still it went from Vietnam to the veteran guys taking up, and then now actually we're seeing a spike in active duty people.
Yeah. It's horrendous. And I don't know too many active duty people. I served a total of 26 years that haven't touched or been around or known firsthand people who have taken their life while on active duty, and um, it spans all ranks. I mean, me alone, the one of the last battalion commanders I had, he was a colonel leaving Germany. He took his life while in Germany. One of our first sergeants, when he got back to the States, took his life. Um, and then I kid you not, it was like the saddest thing I think I ever experienced, because it just breaks you down. When we were in Iraq with I this young 18-year-old kid, he got to Germany after the unit had already deployed. They bring him to he was in Germany for like 3 days, enough to say, here's all your gear, you're getting on the plane, you're flying over. And literally as soon as he got to Tikrit with the unit, and we were co-located with them, within a week he went inside the Porta-John and took his own life with his M16. He's 18.
Wow.
It just it is so prevalent, and it's just awful. Um, yeah, man, it's a deep topic. So
It is. And we talk about the 18-year-old
mhm,
who took his life, who barely got time to serve,
yeah,
barely went into a combat zone, or never went to a combat zone,
mhm,
and maybe the fear of preparing to go, or just the simple fact that he was away from home. He's
yeah,
now right across the country, away from home, from his family. And
yep,
then you've got the 19-year vet, the
mhm,
first sergeant, the major, those guys
yeah,
who actually seen combat, who've experienced different things in life, and they take their lives. So
yeah,
you have two different ends of the spectrum, and we can't really say, hey, let's figure out the problem when you have those two opposite ends of the spectrum.
right,
So that's why I said if there was a specific problem, we would find that specific problem and we will solve it. But we
yeah,
can't when you're looking at different things on those ends right there. What you go through, what I go through, what he goes through,
mhm,
what the other person goes through is it's completely different. And
for
like I
sure.
said,
It, it's
sometimes when we figure it out, it's kind of too late.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would encourage anybody listening, if you know somebody, anybody, and they in any little sign that you might see they're withdrawing from the normal conversations, or they seem like they're off in no man's land, whatever the case might be, you got to put your arms around them. I had a troop literally last year called me. I hadn't we were in Iraq in 2004. It's 2020. You're talking 16 years later. And he reached out to me on Facebook and asked if he could call me. And I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely. Here's my phone number. And I was on the phone with him from, I think, almost 2 hours. And this is now a grown man in his mid 40s, and he had not talked to anybody in those 16 years since we were there about what he experienced while we were there. He was doing casualty operations for us, so he would literally see every casualty that came into the combat support hospital, and that just and he just never wanted to talk about it. So very fortunate that he's still here, and that when it finally caught up to him, he decided to reach out. Right. So it's just it's tough.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I had a similar story of a friend who was actually a roommate, and I was actually down in Savannah, and he just reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Of course." And after playing phone tags like 3 times, because he's over there, and I think he was in Paris, but finally got him on the phone, and we're sitting there talking in the parking lot, and just he needed somebody to talk to at that point.
Yeah.
So, like I said, people have to be willing to make that phone call along with us, and other people have to be willing to take that phone call.
That's right.
And that's where it's at.
Yeah. You have to be willing to take the phone call. And a lot of times it's just listen. They just want to get it off their chest with somebody who was either there with them or has an understanding of what they went through.
Yes.
Or going through and suffering.
I've been doing this for about 6 years. I don't have all the right answers. I'm not a professional counselor, but people call and say, "Hey, Rick, what can we do? How can we help this person?" And only experience I have is the experience that I've learned in the past, and just building all the way up to this. This is what we did with this guy. That necessarily won't work with this guy, but let's try it. Or this is the approach we take. So I have no formal training. I just based off experience. OJT, as we would say, on job training.
That's right.
Got to roll with it.
Yeah, for sure. Wow.
So you'd say the best advice is just to be there and to listen. And I don't know. Sometimes it's like, I don't know how to word this, but there isn't a right thing you can say other than just letting them know that you're there.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, Luke, it's so interesting. I had an experience a couple of years ago in the corporate world and in healthcare, and physicians outside of the military. I think physicians have one of the highest suicide rates in the United States.
Really?
Yes, they do. Those numbers are staggering as well, just like the veterans. But unlike in the military, where you have a lot of suicide prevention training that the Army does and other services do, to try and train the force, train everybody on not symptoms, but the signs you can potentially look for, things to do when you don't want to leave somebody alone, those types of things. I never one time experienced that in the corporate world. Like things like suicide prevention training don't exist from my experience. But I was in this healthcare company, and we had a physician that was in conversation and learning through other leadership, was withdrawing from work, was withdrawing from his staff who loved him a lot, right? And they didn't understand what was happening with him. And then he was withdrawing on the home front. And I got the deer in the headlights look when I actually vocalized, "Hey, is he going to be okay? Do you think suicide could be something that this individual could be contemplating? Has anybody checked on him? Has anybody, and we weren't in the same state. Does anybody in his leadership around where he's at, have they talked to him? Have they pulled him aside? Have they just sat there to listen to him on what might be going on, what might be happening?" I found it really eye-opening that those types of conversations or considerations were not happening in the corporate world, even with a group of people that have a really high, as a profession, have a high rate of suicide.
It's a very, it's an incredibly uncomfortable conversation
Yeah.
for anybody, you know. And I feel like, I mean, I'm sure there's many reasons that go to it, you know, but you look at like my job, when I make mistakes in my job, nobody dies, right? When you're in the military or in healthcare, mistakes can cost other people their lives. And I'm sure I can't even imagine how heavy of a burden that is to carry, you know?
It is. And, you know, when you talk about suicide, suicide is actually, it's larger in the United States than people think. It's actually, the numbers are very staggering. You know, the reason why suicide has been brought up is because now it started affecting our force. But if you take suicide and, you know, the military probably makes up 0.1% of the population. So,
Right.
so the rest of the population, their suicide rate is so high, so increased. But because it's the military and it's a 0.1% of the population, and you know we're well recognized, and it became an issue within that 0.1%. So that's why it started getting high recognition. But you know, we did some studying probably a year or two ago. You know, suicide starts from a young age. So you know that those things that children go through, you know, whether it's just growing up, their childhood, their parents, their siblings, school, bullying, all that can lead up to, you know, them joining the military at 18 and going away from home and committing suicide without even getting to experience anything in the military. So, you know, I believe one thing is we want to take a step and actually look at, you know, trying to catch that at a young age and trying to, you know, talk to these young kids and say, hey, you know, how can we help you? You know, what's going on in your life? You know, and just try to grab it, nip it in the butt, you know, before it manifests and turns into something bigger, you know. And I believe that's some of the reason why some people actually have the suicide thoughts from a young age, and just takes time.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. It really does. When you think about some of the guests that we've had on our show, even talking about from psychologists and talking about neuroscience and so forth, and children, we had one guest, Rick, let us know that, you know, a person's actual personality is developed like between 4 and 7 years old.
Yeah.
So if you're developing your personality and there's so much influence on you because you're like a sponge, right? You're just, and that could be bad or good, right? You can see where that would make sense, that these types of things, they're starting early. It's unreal. Yeah. Makes you think about all the kids now who, and the reports and things that you read, the kids being out of school for the past little over a year due to the pandemic, and not having that interaction with their friends and so forth, and what's that doing to them long term, which we don't know. We won't know that until years to come.
You won't know the effects till later on. I mean,
right.
You look at smoking in the 60s and 70s, you know, now you're seeing the effects. Here we are, you know, probably 90s and 2000. You won't see effects until later on down the line, you know, you know, that cookie you ate yesterday, you'll see that effect right away, because that's going to go straight to your hips.
That's right.
Those aerosol cans, those hairspray that I don't need anymore, you know, that's going to kick in probably about 10, 15 years later. And that's how everything is. It'll kick in later on. Everybody expect to see something right away, you know, and we can not be so lucky to experience and actually see some effects right away. It's later on throughout the years, those things start to develop and set in.
Yeah, for sure. So Rick, what are some things that, if you were just if someone stopped you or just having an everyday conversation and they asked you what you felt were some of the things they could do to help either look out for somebody who might be in trouble, or even they know someone in trouble, what they could do, what would you recommend to them?
First thing I do when somebody calls me or somebody say, hey, this person's in trouble, you know, or we feel like this person's in need, is, okay, cool. Where's this person at? Let me get their number. I try to link up with them. You know, you try to close that gap, you know, meet with them. If you can't, get on the phone with them, You know, that's the immediate thing, is to make that connection, that communication. And from that communication, then you get a feel for them and kind of see where they're at mentally, you know, and then try to find out, hey, what do you think is the issue? How can we solve this? You know, and then try, you know, if you have an experience, you know, yourself, let them know. Like my story, I can tell my story, you know, hey, okay, I know I've been there. I went through some problems in my life. I went through some hard times, you know, and they can sit back and be like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I'm not the only one. You know,
Yeah.
we don't want anybody to make up stories, you know, so
Right.
but if you have an experience and say, yes, I've actually been there. I've been this, you know, the whole, you know, the joke where it says like, hold my beer, you know, it's like, hold my beer, you know, let me
Yeah.
tell you something about me, you know, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to one up them on the worst stories, but you just want to let them know that, hey, you've been there and you can relate to them. And then you figure out what is exactly pushing them to that ledge.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can fine tune it and kind of figure it out, then that's your target, is to get them off that ledge, you know, kind of pull them back, and then start to use your other resources. There's so many resources out here as far as counseling, therapy. Um, they're out there. And the problem with veterans, I believe, and even some people, you know, you won't take it, is that people are too lazy to look up these resources.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many. Like right now we have probably 20 organizations come into this run.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had about 10, 12 last year, but there's 20. You know, at least 7 of them I didn't know nothing about, you know, so they're coming in. And that's the hard thing, is like, you know, nowadays all you have to do is go to Google and type in help with my rent, help with my phone bill, you know, VA benefits, you know, just type in keywords and you're there. It'll give you a full gusto of what you need. And that's what I encourage people to do. You know, you don't have to go open up a phone book nowadays. Just go on Google, type in the keyword, what you need help with, and then go from there. And that's what I would recommend, you know,
Yeah.
and continue to check up on the person. The follow through, that's what it's all about. The follow through and the follow on mission.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely perfect. I love that, because you're so right. It's the follow up. It's this consistency and stick with it, so that you, if you manage to get them off the ledge, you want to keep them off the ledge.
Yep.
Bo, it sounds like Rick is saying do anything but nothing. Call them,
Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
it, get involved, even just a small little bit, right?
Yep.
Do anything but nothing is what I'm getting from this. Even a little bit can go a long way.
Yeah. It's just, you know, as we talk about this, my wife and I, probably 2.5 years ago, we went to a fundraiser in Washington, D.C. for another group that same thing, resources. I think the Headstrong, or We Are Headstrong, or something like that. And they raise money to provide counselors and therapy at no cost for veterans going through something, or definitely for suicide prevention. And they had 3 or 4 guest speakers at this event, and they were service members who had contemplated and got to that point, suicide. And one young man stood up and started to speak, and I mean, the whole room went silent, because it's just, it really hit home. And he talked about going to the parking garage, and then after he jumped off, he woke up. He didn't die. So there you were hearing from somebody that actually went to like a 7 or 8 story parking garage, went to the top and jumped off, and actually was, you know, performed the act. It didn't work. Um, and he was there to tell his story. And yeah, it's all about putting your arms around him, and then, like Luke, just like you just said, do everything but nothing, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's powerful. Super powerful. We were talking to a gentleman last week, Rick. He's a command sergeant major on active duty now, and he's doing a podcast. And he was affiliated with this group in Arizona called We Are the 22. So you're right about like resources being all over the place. You just got to look for it. And a lot of groups are in certain locations, or they're geographically in one spot, but they may not be nationwide. But they had a good mantra too, just in talking about just what you were just saying. When they learn of someone in trouble, like they get that notice, they almost put like a SWAT team on them, and they're there, right? It's not it's whatever they can do to put their arms and physically be in their space, to prevent and to walk them off the ledge. I thought that was great too.
Oh yeah.
Super good. Awesome. This has been something.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
appreciate
amazing.
it.
Rick, tell us all about this suicide awareness run you got coming out, man. Tell people how they can get involved, if they can donate, would lay it all on us.
So this is our 6th annual Man 22 Suicide Awareness Run. We are here in we're here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The run is in Rayford Drop Zone, which is 155 Airport Drive out in Rayford. So it's we have our parachute team out there. They have a swoop pond. They have all that. So we have a big open field where we're going to set up and have all these organizations come out. You contact us through Facebook. Mine is Rgr Rick, RangerRick.com. Not Roger Rick, Ranger Rick. Somebody took the RNGR from me. So I had to go with RGR. So everybody's like, how's it going, Roger? I was like, it's not Roger, it's Ranger.
Ranger.
Our organization is called Through Tragedy Comes Light. So you can look that up. Like I said, everything is connected through my Facebook. May 21st, we actually in Fayetteville, we have a meet and greet. So we'll have a meet and greet from 6 to about 10. We have raffle items, food, but from 6 to 7, we'll have our Gold Star families coming in. And for people who don't know, that's the families of those that have left us for, and they're part of the 22 a day. So we're actually having up to now, I want to say we have 18 to 20 families coming in. So that's a huge number from last year where we had about 5 to 6, so a lot more people are coming together and actually realizing, that we can make a difference by coming together. So we'll have a private dinner for the Gold Stars from 6 to 7, kind of greet them, let them meet each other, get comfortable with the people around them, let them meet myself and everybody here who actually kind of, are leading this thing to get it going. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we'll open the doors to everybody and we'll have a raffle, we'll have food and just kind of meet and greet, socialize. We'll use money raised from the raffle, the t-shirt sales. We have coins, we have patches. That money is used to facilitate the run. When, we got to get the run, we got to have the run in order to have everything else. So we have to facilitate the run. Then the money from there is used towards the Gold Stars lodging and their food meal while they're here. We provide lodging for them Friday and Saturday night. Right now we have them locked in with the Candlewood Suites in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And then we provide them with their food, from Friday evening, Saturday. We're trying to put together a breakfast for them before they all leave.
Nice.
So then after that, the money will go towards different organizations. So last year we raised over $9,000, gave away over 7 to 7 different organizations that support suicide awareness, suicide prevention, and within the community of Fayetteville. So that's what we do, and then everything will go towards the other overhead that we have to take care of, because people don't understand it. But, in order to put together an event, you actually have to put money out there,
Sure.
You can't, make an event happen out of magic, so you have to do that. And, that's the stressful thing that people understand. They usually just see the end results, but
Sure,
there's a lot behind the scenes that a lot of people make happen.
Yeah.
And that's it. I would say just come on out. The morning of the 22nd, we have a Gold Star escort, which we meet up at Jeep Hendricks on McPherson Church Road in Fayetteville, North Carolina at 11 o'clock. We have motorcycles led by the Patriot Guard. We have a memorial motorcycle coming in with Michael Cox. We have different motorcycles that come in, Jeepers, trucks, fire engines, Mission barbecue trucks. If you have a vehicle, heck, if you can even bicycle 35 miles per hour to keep up with the convoy, come on out. Let's do this. Let's escort these families. And we depart at 12 from Jeep Hendricks to the location. And, we get there about 12:45, 1 o'clock. And then our jumpers jump in. So we have the all-veteran group parachute team that jumps in. They had a 22 a day flag, our great American flag, my logo flag, and they jump in at 2:00. Everything's followed by a national anthem. We have our guest speakers. Judge Stokes, who's local to here, Fayetteville, is an Army veteran ranger, a judge here, so well known in the community. He's one of my mentors. A lot of people mentors here, and so
Nice.
we have Scott McCauley, who's a trooper. He'll be speaking on behalf of first responders. We have Miranda Briggs, who's a very close friend of mine. Her husband was a very close friend of mine, so she'll be coming in to tell her story, about her husband, who's an Army Ranger also, that took his life, and how she continued on. They had a brand new baby, 3 weeks old.
Wow.
So she continued on, and she actually created her own foundation called Fight the War Within. So she's going to speak about her story. And then from there, we'll kick off the run,
Nice.
or walk or talk,
Yeah.
People get scared when they hear run. I mean, I get scared when I hear run. It's my run, and then they get scared when they hear body armor. So it's just like we started making t-shirts. So like I talked about with the body armor, you wear the name tapes of those that are falling to suicide. We have our Man 22 t-shirts. This year we went with red, which we, represent, remember everyone deployed. So we went with the Red Friday theme. And our t-shirts were created by Crack and Skull, which is a veteran-owned company here, a guy that I serve with. And on the sleeve of the t-shirts, we put Velcro on there. So you don't have to wear body armor, but you can still wear the name tapes of those that are falling to
awesome.
suicide.
That's
like
cool.
that.
Velcro on there. And of course, we have all our sponsors on the back.
Nice. Good
So
stuff.
yeah, time and place, 21st, 22nd, 22nd, Rayford Drop Zone, 155 Airport Drive. Time on target is 2:00 for jumpers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
This has
going to be
been
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Ranger Rick, you're doing an awesome thing, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Keep it up. Absolutely. Bone Luke Nation, Ranger Rick, thanks for being here. 6th annual Man 22 Suicide Awareness Run on May 22nd, Fayetteville, North Carolina, Rayford, North Carolina, Airport Drive. It's Rayford Drop Zone. Make sure you're there if you're in the area, and show up and show support. And that's that. Tune in for a new episode every Thursday. You can subscribe to our email newsletter for information on upcoming guests, giveaways, and more. Rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to our sponsor, Sound United, for quality broadcast audio throughout Season 2.